Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. And as you can see, we are alive and well in Tampa. Thank you, everybody, for all your questions about how we're doing. Evacuation was rescinded at 5 p.m. tonight, and we were happily home by early this morning, to tell you the truth. Even though there was no cars on the highway, we still came home. Anyway, Connie Clary says, hey, everybody. Hey, Connie, glad that you're here. Hi, Tori.
Tori
Gates. I know. Hello. I did want to remind everybody that our paranormal podcast is on tomorrow night.
Right.
That's not the happy haunted hour.
No, it's now you got me saying it.
Sorry.
Haunted Campfire Tales.
That's right. Haunted Campfire Tales. Marjorie Deering says hi. Hi, Marjorie.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, we came home early from, the evacuation because it looked like it was pretty good. But then we had tropical storms all day long, but they just finished a little while ago. So we're high and dry, and everyone in our family is safe. So we're happy about that.
Yep. And now for the news.
Okay.
As you mentioned, tomorrow night, 7:30, go to the Tampa Bay Spirits Facebook page. That's Tampa Bay Spirits Facebook page. We're going to do a Haunted Hill House recap from our investigation on July 3rd out there in Mineral Wells, Texas.
The live stream that we did.
Yes, indeed. And it'll be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, or right here where you're watching this show right now. Okay. And you can get other information or more information, see the other podcasts and everything at tampabayspirits1.com. That's the number 1. Immediately following our show, of course, make sure you check out Voice of Indie podcast. It's following this broadcast. There'll be a commercial at the end of the show to tell you how to get over to blogtalkradio.com and find their podcast. This coming Saturday is episode 94, which was Magnolia Bluff 2023 Reveal Part 1 from earlier this year. And that's at 5:30 p.m. Also right here where you're watching right now. Next Wednesday, September 6th, live from Australia, author Philip Strang.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Writes murder mysteries. And it should be good. That'll be at 7 o'clock next Wednesday, again, right here where you're watching now. And can you bring up Joe's book? Want to mention available for pre-order is Joe Congel's book, Second Chances, Magnolia Bluff nice Crime cover. Chronicles. Yeah. And again, that's available for pre-order, and you can get that on Amazon.
And I just want to say that Paul Hollis has checked in, says, hi, Rob and Joan. Hi, Paul. We're so glad that you could be here. We're happy to see you. And whether you're watching us live now on the podcast or if you're listening to us later on when it's a podcast, we're really glad that you're in our audience. Remember, we love your comments. Keep the comments coming. We have a guest tonight that I think you're really going to find really interesting. She's a wealth of knowledge. And first and foremost, she's a scientist, and she knows everything. I do believe everything about her subject.
Well, before we bring her in, let's mention this.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to let them know who was going to be on.
Oh, go ahead.
Finish. And that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I just didn't want to miss this.
I wouldn't have missed that.
Today, even though we had a hurricane, Regina Noel Downing, one of our authors, she was on, I don't know how many episodes ago.
She was on
our show.
When our great-granddaughter was being born. Yes, she was born June 7th.
Yeah.
So.
She was on, and she's written 3 children's books that are really awesome. And they showed up in the mail today, all 3 of them. The first one is Give a Little Snuggle. As you can see, she put her business card on here, and she put a guitar pick with the name of each book associated with that book.
Because each book is put to music.
Each book has sheet music in the back and the song that goes with it that she wrote. Let's see if I can get that on here. Well, it's sheet music. You all know what sheet music looks like, so I'm not going to show that to you. But there, Give a Little Snuggle, Bedtime Rhyme is this one. Very nicely done. So if you have kids, I would strongly recommend these books. Dear Mom and Dad is the other one. Okay. And I was just amazed. The guitar picks, she had them embossed with the name of the books associated with them. Anyway, thank you, Regina. We really appreciate it. Our great-granddaughter will really appreciate it, don't you think?
Yes. Amelia Rose.
Amelia Rose. Would you like to bring in our new guest?
I would.
Tonight's guest.
Let's bring her right on in. Hello.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
HANSON. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm just so glad that you guys are okay.
We are too.
Great way to start.
We can put away the scuba gear now. I don't think we're going to need it.
Then you'd see my friends.
It was a long day.
It was a long night. Yeah.
Yeah, long night and a long day, and I'm glad
I
it's
appreciate you being here today because I thought, my gosh, you need time to recover.
Yeah, it was really an exhausting day. You know, when you're in that fight or flight mode and you have all that adrenaline pumping, and then the danger is past, and then you just kind of collapse. That's kind of what we were like on the sofa today, just like
zoning out.
Yeah.
Well, we had to get caught up in a bunch of stuff too, but
we did.
Then we zoned out.
Yeah. I zoned out while I was doing
it. So, Michelle, enough about us.
More about
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I'm an author of books about seashells, but honestly, I never lived near the ocean. So I don't have a reason for my passion for shells. All I know is my parents told me when I was around 4 that my grandparents came back with shells from their beach vacation, and I wanted to know everything about them. That never left me. So by the time I was 8, they got me the How and Why Wonder Book of Seashells, thinking that would satisfy me. My reaction was, I need to memorize this book. So I started a journal. How and Why is set up with a question-answer format. So all I did was copy the questions with my memorized answers. But I have it here because I want to show you something. I got so obsessed with shells. So the How and Why, it's yellow with age. But it got to the point where my aunt had a brand new shower curtain she couldn't wait to show her little niece. And it was pink plastic with shells on it. I came over. My reaction is, can I cut up your brand new curtain for my journal?
That probably didn't go over well.
She let you.
She let you do it.
There, those are the shells from her shower curtain.
Oh my goodness.
Well, what a good aunt.
Was. And I look at that now with mixed reaction, like I'm touched that she let me cut it up, but kind of mortified that she let me cut it up.
Oh, but she loved you.
My family was of this obsessed little kid.
That's so wonderful, though. Just real quick, when we got George just came on.
Hi, George.
George Dismuke says, I'm here. Sorry I'm late. Glad to see you were high and dry. How is Missy? She's okay, George, but she really did have a stressful night. Number one, because of the storm. And, she doesn't like thunderstorms anyway. Hurricanes are even worse. And number 2, because we stayed with our daughter, Colleen, who has a Great Dane. And as you know, Missy's not very big. George knows Missy. He's her.
Met her.
Oh, he can picture the difference then, yes.
Oh, yeah. She's, he's her great uncle, I think. Why is this not doing that? That's weird. Okay. Sorry, just having technical difficulties here. Go ahead, Shelley. Plus, you know what, guys? This you have to know. Shelley's always been known as Shelley, even before her obsession with shells. So I think that's...
Isn't that weird? My birth name is Michelle, but all my life, friends and family call me Shelley. And so now I love my name because I get to be a shell. Perfect. But actually, that ties into a question about publishing. Because when I first started writing my book, that's actually, I have something I want to read out of Ocean Wisdom. I think that might come first.
All right, go right ahead.
I just realized I'd be back.
Let me quickly show people the covers of both your books. The first book is Ocean Oracle, What Seashells Reveal About Our True Nature, which is interesting because I never heard of that before, but I love all that stuff. And then the book that she's going to read out of is Ocean Lessons from the Seashell Kingdom. And by the way, if you're looking these books up on Amazon, when you do that, please put in the subtitle Lessons from the Seashell Kingdom so you can find the correct book, because there's a lot of ocean wisdom bopping around out there.
Or you could put Ocean Wisdom and Michelle HANSON, and
then that'll do it too.
That'll do it too, yeah.
I wrote them back in like 2004, 2007.
Okay.
I'm happy to see this is really taking off now. People are really interested in this topic. So I was alone for a really long time, looking for a teacher, actually. But what happened was loving shells and starting to write about the shells. I want to share, I've got this shell here. It's called the green tree snail. This is about change of comfort zone. So I will explain how this fits in, but the part I want to read in Ocean Wisdom is the introduction, and it's called Challenging Comfort Zones. It talks about the mollusk. The mollusk is the animal that makes the shell. So a clam mollusk makes a clam shell, and a snail mollusk makes a snail shell. A mollusk is born with a perfectly fitted shell surrounding its body. With age, as the animal's body expands, discomfort is created in its now too confining enclosure. New calcified material is added to accommodate its increased dimensions. Our own comfort zones likewise surround us like shells. They define our boundaries. I'll go this far, but no farther. Upon exposure to new thoughts and ideas, if we permit ourselves to grow, these comfort zones may stretch and expand to accommodate the new beings we become. When considering my relationship with seashells, my own comfort zone has mimicked the mollusk growth pattern. As my comfort zone expands, somewhere just short of the breaking point, I'm granted time to acclimate in the new realm. Then I'm stretched or pulled, and it's time to grow again. After dabbling as a shell reader for 12 years, I was convinced of the shell's capacity to uplift and enlighten others and felt secure in my hobby. Quite unexpectedly, my day job was abruptly terminated when the owner sold not only her business, but the territory as well. The employees were expressly forbidden to create their own similar business anywhere in the area. I was at a loss of what to do when someone suggested advertising shell reading. I placed a small experimental ad in a local metaphysical magazine, and the results were far more than I bargained for. I was asked to write a column on shell divination, stretch, and to be interviewed on a radio show connected with their magazine. This led to TV appearances, newspaper interviews, and more publicity, and each step was another stretch of that comfort zone. I received telephone requests for shell readings, but was unable to comply because in order to do a reading, I needed the person there to select their shells. This challenge stimulated me to find a way to export seashell divination for use anywhere in the world. My solution was to write a book, big stretch, with a companion deck of cards for performing readings. Ocean Oracle was published in 2004. While still in the midst of writing Ocean Oracle, feeling secure in imparting the knowledge garnered from my shells, my comfort zone was stretched yet again. I received a call from a woman working with crystals who expressed an eagerness to add shells to her work. She wanted me to teach her how to work with shells as energy tools. Since I didn't work with shells that way, I readily admitted that I couldn't help her. Instead of accepting my position, she said, "That's okay. I'll wait. You'll figure it out and then you can teach me. And I think you'll be teaching the teachers." I had no idea why she felt this, but I thanked her for her call, intending to give it no more thought. That became increasingly difficult when during the next 2 weeks, 3 additional crystal workers independently called with similar epiphanies. They too wanted to add shells to their work. My reply hadn't wavered from the one the first caller received, but these repetitive requests stirred my desire to have something to offer. With no idea how to proceed, I turned to meditation. Stretch. I envisioned a blank screen and asked the shells to guide me. What followed was a wonderful odyssey. The shells guided me to astonishing discoveries that I felt a responsibility to share. The paramount factor in personal growth involves willingness to risk changing your comfort zone, stretching. When new information is presented, it may be overlooked if we remain stuck in our current perceptions of the world. The shells offer a nurturing, safe place to discover our thoughts and beliefs and provide us with the opportunity to change anything that no longer serves us. As you've seen, I continue to stretch myself in order to reach the position to bring this information to you. May it assist you in growing into your truth.
Well, that's fascinating.
Interesting.
I am really sure that almost everyone listening to this has never heard of shell reading. I mean, most of us have heard about tea leaves and
yes,
tarot cards and palm reading and even phrenology,
crystals.
Reading your head.
Crystals.
Well, crystals are energy, but they're not exactly reading.
But it's interesting you should say that, because I was the same way. I had never heard of shell reading. I love shells all my life. I had maybe 250 shells. When someone visited me, he said he heard of a shell reader. And I was shocked. And I wanted to go. And I was a very shy person, but I hounded this guy for 2 weeks for the information of the shell reader, and he never found it. So he realized he lit that fire in me, and just to salvage something, he said, "Why don't you use your own shells?" And because I'd studied them all my life, you saw my childhood journal, I never stopped. He said, "Why don't you use your own shells?" I said, "Everyone will know this one's poisonous. This is the principle of the submarine. This one can't swim and builds a raft. This is where the color purple comes from." And I'm going on and on and on, thinking everybody knows this. It's common knowledge. And he said, "I don't think everyone's going to know that." So he repeated, "I really think you should use your own shells." And this was a phone conversation. So I hung up the phone and I thought, how am I going to do that? With 200 shells, I thought, well, if they're going to have messages, there's got to be something unique about each one. And it turned out that's not a daunting task. They practically have nothing in common. It was very easy. So easy that it only took me 1 week to find the message for each of the 200 shells.
That's amazing.
Totally amazing.
Although I found it, I was too shy to tell anyone.
Well, so hold on to that thought. Hold on to that thought, because actually we need to take a break.
Okay.
And have a short commercial break from our sponsors.
We'll be back.
We'll be back. Don't go away, anyone. And Shelley can pick up where she left off.
Extremely interesting process here.
Yes.
Hold on just a minute.
Yeah.
It's 1919. Back from the war in Europe, Eric Lasko returns to Floodwood Station, Ohio, the small coal mining town he calls home. There, he faces new foes. One poses a threat to his personal long-term relationship. The other is lurking in the adjacent Hocking Hills State Forest, a vicious, incredibly lethal beast driven by bloodlust. An 11-year-old girl and an old man have seen the creature, but no one believes the claims of a young child and a known drunk. When the first body is found, Eric, his father and brother, become suspects in his grisly death. To clear himself and his family, Eric must prove the beast exists. As the gruesome body count rises, the immigrant miners realize what's stalking their town. Every country calls it by a different name, but the creature is the same. Werewolf. Who is it? The residents reach a conclusion, but are they right?
Mystery hovers in the Magnolia Bluff Public Library. It has nothing to do with the hundreds of suspense novels on its shelves. Caroline McCluskey is the librarian. She finds a crimson hat and a black and white poodle puppy. They belong to Esther Williams. Esther is missing. The police can't find her. Neither can the FBI. Esther's only hope is a ring of 3 women investigators who form the Round Table. The Round Table has already solved one mystery in town, but this time, a woman's life is at stake. The Doggone Diamond Dilemma is now available on Amazon.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
And we're back.
We're back.
Hey.
Yes.
So, Michelle, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned publishing before, and we would like to know what your biggest roadblock was in getting the books published.
Okay.
In the
So
publishing process. Yeah.
what I initially did in the little bit that I read from Ocean Wisdom, remember how I said people were calling me and asking for shell readings, and so I decided to write a book. So I ended up printing it on my computer. Now it has cards, so I used business card stock, and you would just separate it along the perforations. The meanings were on the back. What I found is people were using it as a coffee table book, and never separating the cards. So they weren't able to really utilize it to its full capacity. So that's how I started. And then I was looking for a publisher, and I looked because I had 200 cards, most tarot decks, 78. So 200 is, everyone kept writing back to me that I had contacted saying, can you cut out some cards? Can you cut out some shells? That's like saying, who's your favorite child? I mean, it's impossible to do. So finally, I found a publisher, and it was remarkable. It turned out she only published in-house, but she suggested a friend of hers who was out in Oregon. And I wrote to that person thinking I was getting her attention by having her friend be the one to introduce me. Much later, I found out when a reporter covered the story, I was shocked reading the article. It turned out it had nothing to do, because I kept telling everyone, you don't need an agent. You can get a published book without an agent. It turned out my book went into a slush pile of hundreds of books. And some intern found my book in the slush pile and brought it to the attention of the editor. So it had nothing to do with my writing because it was based on this other person. So that was news to me. And I felt guilty that I'd been telling everyone you don't need an agent. So now I just think if it's meant to be, it'll find a way. So that was my publisher, and it was called Beyond Words. Beyond Words published another book called The Hidden Messages in Water. That got the attention of Simon & Schuster. So Simon & Schuster wanted to publish The Hidden Messages in Water by Masaru Emoto. And Beyond Words said, fine, but you're going to take all of our authors. And Simon & Schuster had never done a deck. So I waited and waited because it was possible they just weren't going to do it. And Beyond Words wasn't going to continue with it. And it was like pins and needles. And finally, they decided they would. And I am so glad they did, because they did a beautiful job making a new box and really making it look like actual cards and a deck. So I went with them for quite some time. And now they have an arm called Atria, which is sort of the metaphysical branch of Simon & Schuster. They still do the ebook, but the rights to the hardcover book converted back to me. So now it's self-published, because I'm so old. When this first happened, it's like 2007. Getting a publisher was great. They helped with marketing. They helped getting you out there. Now, if you have a publisher, it really doesn't mean that much, because they want you to have a following. And so you already have to have done a ton of marketing just to get the publisher. And if you've already done that marketing, why do you need the publisher? So I find it easier to self-publish if you're going to put all that time and attention into marketing.
Yeah, some of our friends write metaphysical books, and even in the metaphysical publishing world, okay, they want you to have a blog, they want you to have a newsletter. Your newsletter has to have so many followers. You know, it's just like, and plus I don't think they help that much in the marketing, if you want to know the truth. So, but
I agree. I really don't think they do. Now, what happened was, I was back in the day, I was at a big event it was called the New Age Expo, which was these big book fairs for people in the business. It wasn't necessarily for the public. And I was invited to come sit at the table with my publisher and do readings. So I'm doing these readings, and eventually I was talking about information that wasn't in Ocean Oracle, but it was in Ocean Wisdom. And as I'm talking about this information, the person that I'm doing the reading for says, well, where's that information? I said, that's in the next book I'm writing. And over my shoulder, the publisher from Beyond Words says, that's the next book we're going to do. I was shocked. I hadn't even sent them my manuscript yet. So I thought, great. So I finish Ocean Wisdom and I send them my manuscript, and I'm waiting to hear, because I thought they said that was the next one they were going to do. And finally they wrote, and they rejected it because they said, this is more like a memoir, and no one will believe that you can work with shells this way. So I had two problems with this publisher. One was I couldn't use the name Shelley HANSON. They said, everyone will think you made up the name Shelley to do this work. So I had to go by Michelle, which I was not used to answering to at all my whole life. Now I'm okay with Michelle. And the second was, I sent them Ocean Wisdom, and it had cards. Would you believe the publisher said, you can't have cards. You can publish the book with anybody else you want to, but if you have cards, we'll sue you. So it turned out I couldn't have any cards in Ocean Wisdom. So I self-published it. But what I did is I put all the shells on the inside. Let's see, this way. The inside cover, front cover, back cover, and inside back cover, because color's more expensive. So I put all the color in the cover. And once I ran out of room, I stopped writing. So it sort of limited me there with, okay, that's all I can talk about in this book because I don't have any more space.
Well, you know what? Let me give people all of your information here where they can reach you and stuff, because then we'll talk about the fact that you have classes and they can now get
Okay.
all of that information online, which kind of solves that whole problem. But
Oh, yes. It's so
I
much
can see you really had trouble there.
Oh my goodness.
All right. So Michelle's website is oceanoracle.com, and that's OCEANORACLE. Now, that's where they can find your classes?
Yes.
Okay, so remember that. You can find her on Facebook under Ocean Oracle MH. So Ocean Oracle spelled the same way, and then MH, which of course is Michelle HANSON. You can find her on Instagram as author Michelle HANSON. And Michelle HANSON is MICHELLEHANSON. YouTube at Ocean Oracle 7611. So I'm also wondering, Michelle, if on the YouTube, do you do any classes on YouTube or?
No, I don't.
Okay. So what can people find on your YouTube channel?
That would just be videos. Actually, on my homepage, you'll find the videos that are on the YouTube as well.
Okay.
And they're just like bullet points with
Okay.
videos of my responses to someone who interviewed me on a TV show.
Okay. So at the beginning, when you were reading from Ocean Wisdom, you were talking about that little green shell.
Yes.
And just thinking about that shell, the point you were getting to is that you can learn something from every different type of shell that every different type of mollusk has because of their different properties. So that one has to overcome by stretching.
Yes. Change the comfort zone.
Growing.
See how green this is?
Yes.
Okay. This is a land snail. It's from Papua New Guinea. And they hide among the leaves. It's perfect camouflage for hiding among the leaves.
Well, sure, it looks like a leaf.
Yeah. And so there are times of the years in New Guinea where the climate is intolerable. And what they do is, a lot of people know that snails have that slimy mucus.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of magical ways that mollusks use mucus. And these guys plug up the opening to their shell so it keeps the moisture inside their shell. And it lets the air, the oxygen, go in and out. And they go into hibernation. You can't find them until the climate changes and they come back out again. So it's changing.
Well, they hibernate in the summer.
It's called estivation. And so if you're going to look for these guys while they're hibernating, you're not going to find them.
Isn't that fascinating? It's just the opposite of, what we think of with hibernation, which is bears.
Right.
In the winter.
For them, it's too warm.
It's too cold, and they eat really a whole lot, and squirrels do, and store up food and all that kind of stuff. Oh, wait a minute. We have a comment. Let me see if we've got a question here. George Dismukes says, Shelley, are there...
Yes. Oh, my God.
Okay. I knew George. Are there any giant clam? I can't. We'll let her say that. Remaining, or have they been fished out?
What are you talking about?
What is the name that he's asking right there, Shelley?
The tridacna clam. So the giant tridacna clam, they're like, the adults are like 4 feet, 500 pounds. They're these huge, huge clams. And Hollywood has called them man-eating clams because they're so massive.
Yeah.
Nothing could be farther from the truth. These guys are vegetarians. They grow algae in the mantle. That's the part that makes your shell. The mantle of their body, if you ever look at pictures of tridacna, that's green. The algae is growing inside their body. They're like 20 feet under the water. And instead of being this way, a top and a bottom, they're in sort of like a right and left side. So the sun can penetrate for the algae. And they absorb the nutrients by cell-to-cell contact. They are not able to chase a plant, never mind a man. They are not man-eating by any stretch of the imagination. But their meaning, because of that, is an undeserved reputation or being misunderstood in some way, because they're labeled as man-eating clams. Now, he's asking if they can still find them. I hope so. I don't know, because as I said before, I really haven't observed them in the water. Everything I learned was from books, starting with that How and Why Wonder book.
So we don't know if they've gone extinct or not.
No, that question worries me, because I didn't even know that was a potential, that they could be going extinct. But I did want to say they don't deserve that reputation.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like vegisaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're farmers.
If you watch Jurassic Park, there is Metasaurus and Vegisaurus, and that was very important to know. Yeah, George says they used to be a big item in shell shops.
Yes, and they were used as baptismal fonts. They were
That big.
Were they long lived?
Well, I don't know about the Tridacna gigas, but I'll tell you one that's very long lived. The quahog clam.
Yeah, I know the quahogs.
Okay.
From Massachusetts.
Yes,
to go
they were used as wampum. The Indians would make the beads for currency. Well, people think if you count the rings on a clam, you can tell how old it is. That's only true if the clam lives in a northern climate, because they're taking the calcium out of the water, and it has to be warm enough, so it's only in the summer. So once a year, they add a ring. There is a Ming, M-I-N-G, quahog found off the coast of Iceland, that they were hauling the clams onto the boat. They took them to the lab. They're counting the rings. They counted 400 rings. And then I thought, oh, they're going to get equipment and to say, whoops, we made a mistake. And they did, only the mistake was there were 500 rings. It still got to be the Ming quahog, but that animal was 500 years old.
That's amazing.
So they're still in the ocean. Half a
George
century.
says he hopes they're on the protected list, the Tridacna giga. And Joy York says, this sounds really interesting. They were all just beautiful shells to me. Now I know the rest of the story. Yeah, because each one, Shelley has been able to say, well, this taught me this, and this can teach you this. And I would imagine the shell that you are attracted to, just like any other kind of reading, would say something about your personality or something that you need to learn, or, a direct.
My very first reading, the reason I even got into this, is the same person who said he heard of a shell reader.
Yeah.
Came back about a month later. He was a professional psychic. That was his profession. And I had met him for different reasons. He happened to be in my apartment because of my husband. And so he left after making that offhanded comment, and then suggested using my own shells. I had meanings now for all the shells and no one to tell them to, because I was too shy. A month later, he comes back and he says, have you done any readings? And I said, I can tell you what they all mean, but I'm not going to go up to someone and tell them there's a language. They'll think I'm crazy. So
and we're used to that. People have thought we were crazy for a long time. Out looking for Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot more to the world than you can just see with your physical senses.
There you go.
And so he asked if he could have a reading. And I thought, I might as well see if there's anything to this. I said, okay, over there's about 200 shells. Pick out whatever gets your attention and let's see what it says. He comes back with 2 out of 200. And my heart sank, because I hardly knew the man and he's only giving me 2 shells. But the first shell was called the Episcopal Mitre. Whoever first finds a shell can name it anything they want to. The Latin name, the scientific name is in Latin with genus and species, but the common name can be anything. You would not believe there's a clam called the prostitute Venus clam.
Oh my God.
Nothing to do with the animal or the shell. It has to do with the person who named it. Anyway, this was called the Episcopal mitre because they thought it looked like the mitres that the clergy wear.
Sure.
And then I have an Episcopal mitre at the time. That's all I have. I now also have a pontifical mitre. But
Awesome.
but he had the Episcopal mitre. And the second shell he picked, it was a land snail that I got from my Irish babysitter. And it looks like a pattern, like a spinning wheel. So I said to him, Robert, if you're focused on religion, which was the Episcopal mitre, it looks like you'd be spinning your wheels like you're stuck in a rut. I thought, this makes no sense. This is going to end as fast as it starts, the first time I ever tried a reading. And he looks at me and he goes, so you're telling me if I were to focus on religion, I'd be making no progress. I'd get stuck. And I said, yeah, that's what that would mean. He says to me, well, I'm an ex-seminary student. I was going to be a priest. And I ran into something in the seminary that didn't resonate. I had this spiritual calling, but I had to leave the seminary. It turned out he's a professional psychic, so he had that spiritual calling, but it took him in another direction. But this was his soul's crisis in 2 shells.
Wow.
And my mouth dropped open. I went, huh? And then he said, so this doesn't work, huh? Like teasing me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was almost 40 years ago. So I've been doing them ever since.
That's crazy.
We have to take another
take our last break. When we come
commercial
back, when we come back, we're going to have a book giveaway and we're going to talk some more because there's a lot more. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here.
Also, I believe Marjorie has a question.
Right. And we'll get that.
We'll do the question when we come back.
Right.
Because it's an interesting question I want to know the answer to.
Yeah, stay
I
tuned.
hope I know the answer.
You do.
Well, I'm pretty sure you do.
Stay tuned, folks.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than 3-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book 1 of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
Madison Jackson loved being a cop. A young girl is raped and murdered near Burnett Reservoir. Madison vows to get justice for the child. Madison travels to the heart of Mexican cartel country. She is kidnapped, tortured. Will Madison ever make it home? Justice by Kelly Marshall, only at Amazon.com.
And we're back. And here is Marjorie's question. What is their method of reproduction? Oh, no, see, Shelley's rubbing her hands together. I think she knows the answer to this.
I'm so glad I get to discuss it because I said there's such diversity. So you have oysters. Oysters are asexual reproduction. You've got the male and the female, one's releasing sperm, one's releasing egg. There are fish nearby gobbling them up as fast as they're being released, so very inefficient. Then you have hermaphrodites. They contain both male and female sex organs in the same animal. The beauty of that is land snails are hermaphrodites, bubble shells are hermaphrodites. If you finally come across another of your species and you're both the same gender, nothing is going to happen. But if you're hermaphrodites, you can each fertilize each other. So you've got the asexual, you've got hermaphrodites. And then you have heterozygous reproduction, male and female, normal reproduction. Moon snails, bonnets, they make either sand collars or towering capsules. And you might have seen like whelk egg cases, the big channeled capsules along the beach. They all get abandoned. The most devoted mother of all the mollusks is the octopus. I know you don't picture an octopus as something with a shell, as a mollusk, but it is. It used to have a shell. It lost it through evolution. And it's a cephalopod, a head foot, although the head of an octopus, that what we picture as the head, is actually its body. It contains all the internal organs, including 3 single-chambered hearts. That's part of what's inside the octopus. But they lay their eggs, and then they never leave until they hatch. It could be 4 months. It could be 6 months. I just, the other day, saw something online of an octopus that's 2 years guarding its eggs, never leaves to eat. So they've wasted away, and their predators know, they're lined up that the octopus is going to be so weak. Their last act is to try and blow the babies past all those predators.
What's the name of that movie?
Well, there's My Octopus Teacher.
Yeah, you've got to watch My Octopus Teacher. It's an amazing show, and I don't believe any of you will have a dry eye at the end of the
No. And look how far we've come, because when I was a kid, Little Mermaid had Ursula the octopus. She was the villain. Pirates of the Caribbean had the octopus. He was the villain. They're always the bad guys. They're always the ones that are off-putting to everyone. Finally, people are starting to realize how intelligent, how amazing these guys are. They're evolving faster than anything else on the planet.
Now, you did mention something that caught my interest, because I don't know what you're talking about. Bubble shells, did you say?
Yes, they're hermaphrodites.
What are bubble shells?
They look like, they're very lightweight, and they're a single shell, and the area that's closed off is kind of small. So if they're in danger, they vomit whatever's in their stomach so they can squeeze themselves into the little space that is covered. So I don't know how else to describe the bubble shells for you.
Are they sea shells or are they land snails?
Sea. Seashell.
And where do they live?
Usually, most things are in the Indo-Pacific.
Okay.
And the meaning is, it has to do with keeping secrets. Because I was thinking of people that eat and purge. That's what they do. They have to purge to get into their shell. So if it's in a reading, it has to do with secretive behavior. And then you just look at one of the other shells, and that gives details to fill out the whole message.
That's really, really fascinating. It really is. You know, I've had a reading with tarot cards, and actually I had a reading on a radio program, and it was a person who didn't know who I was.
Okay.
Knew nothing about me, couldn't see me. And it was really so accurate. It actually made me cry because it was so accurate. It was beautiful. So this would be really interesting.
I've learned I have to keep Kleenex nearby when you do readings, because the purpose of a reading for me is about predicting the future. You know, people think about fortune telling. It's not about that.
No.
About your hidden thoughts, your
It's
hidden
about
things.
knowing yourself.
Exactly. I had a
Revealing
student who
yourself
said
to
that.
yourself. Yeah.
My one of the best compliments I got from a student was she said, I feel like I met myself for the first time in the class.
And that's what any reading is about. Absolutely.
Yes.
It is.
Before we get much later,
yeah.
let's do the book giveaway.
Yeah.
The first 3 people to email Michelle@oceanoracle.com will win an ebook copy of Ocean Wisdom. Okay.
Yes.
So the first 3 people to do that, we're going to leave that.
Because that has her email address. We didn't put her email address up there. So
I got to put it on. The email address is on there.
Okay. Where?
And I want to mention in the ebook, it ends with a guided meditation, but you're able to click on a link at the end of the ebook and you'll still be able to get the guided meditation with all the sound effects and everything.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention that you have a guided meditation.
That's right.
Our daughter is a yogi, so you know she does guided meditations, and plus we have a yogi that we really like to listen to too. There's a lot of different meditations that I like. I like ocean sounds, you know, as a meditation. That's really good. So that's really interesting to me.
I wanted to mention, if you are listening to this, you didn't catch the live show, go ahead and email Michelle@oceanoracle.com. Anyway, she may have extra copies. You never know.
Books.
Yes. Or if you have any questions that you want to ask me, maybe you have a favorite
right?
show.
Right. Even if it's a month from now, feel free to do that. She'll be happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Does
Thank you for
anyone in the audience have a question about their favorite shell and what that means? If anyone wants to, I'll read it on the air. I don't have a favorite shell. I like a lot of shells. You know, I showed you some of my shells that I have.
Yes.
But I guess maybe a conch. So what is it about a conch?
Okay, so there's lots of species of conchs. Fighting conchs, it's about standing your ground.
Oh, well, isn't that interesting?
That's kind of the shell you'll find in Florida, fighting conch.
Hold on a second. There is somebody. Marjorie Deering said the sand dollar.
Okay, so sand dollars. Sand dollars are not mollusks. They're echinoderms, but I work with them. And sand dollars, I have a species where it looks like a lily on the front and a star in the center and slits. And on the back, it's got a poinsettia image. And someone wrote a poem called The Legend of the Sand Dollar. And it's like likening all these aspects of the sand dollar. If you break a sand dollar, it looks like little white doves, which are the sand dollar's teeth. The slits are wounds. You've got the poinsettia, the lily, the star, all aspects of the life of Jesus. And I don't know who wrote it because it's anonymous. But what it's saying is if you can see divinity, for some, Jesus is the Son of God, for some, a master teacher. If you can see that in a sand dollar, surely that exists within us. And we either create or co-create, depending upon your beliefs about God, our reality. Now, if you look around and there's any misery in your life, it's not the most comfortable thing to think you created it. But if you didn't, that would make you a victim. And the message of Sand Dollar is conquering victimization, like understanding you're not a victim. And it's also, for energy workers, it's crown chakra, where you feel abandoned or betrayed by God in some way. That's crown chakra. And sand dollar is linked to the footprints in the sand story. Is everyone familiar with that? Where someone says, God, you said you'd be by my side all my life. And when I look back, I see 2 sets of footprints until the worst times. And then I only see 1 set. Why did you leave? And God said, I didn't leave you. That's when I'm carrying you. And that's the message of sand dollar.
It's a good message. Because we're not victims.
No, we're not victims. Thank you for that question, though. I appreciate that.
We're overcomers.
For sure.
Yes. That's starfish survival.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the other day, you just mentioned in passing seahorses. Where do those fall into the
ocean wisdom?
Ocean wisdom.
Okay. I include seahorses. Again, they're not mollusks, they're fish.
Right. Obviously, we know sand dollars are not, and
right.
Seahorses are not.
Seahorses, the female lays the eggs and the male has a pouch. Her eggs are transferred into his pouch. He then nurtures the eggs, goes through the contractions, goes through the labor, and births the babies. It's as close as a male comes to being pregnant of anybody on the planet, any species, for a male. So seahorses are about a nurturing male, whether it be father, whether it be husband, that whole nurturing male energy.
Isn't that great? You know what? We were at the aquarium here. We have a beautiful aquarium in Tampa. And we love the seahorses and the sea dragons. We just love them. So we were watching the sea dragons, and the sea dragon was giving birth as we were watching. Okay. They didn't even know, okay, that he was giving birth. And so one of our daughters ran to tell them this is happening. And oh my gosh, there was such a flurry. They all came in, they cut off the exhibit. Nobody could come near it. They enclosed it so that, you know, nothing would disturb the seahorse.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And he gave birth to so many, but we got to see the whole thing. And
what a privilege.
We were standing there. But I mean, we didn't do anything. We didn't knock on the glass or make any noise or anything like that. But you know, our daughter said, oh, they're going to want to know this. I know they're going to want to know that this seahorse is giving birth. And oh my gosh, and you know, seahorses aren't that big. You should see their babies.
Right.
They're really tiny.
Tiny. I have to tell you something though about seahorses, because most people, when they think of seahorses, it's all warm and fuzzy. I was doing a reading for someone and she saw the seahorse on my, can you see it right there?
We do. Yes, we do. We see them.
So she goes, seahorses? I hate seahorses.
Whoa.
And I thought, whoa, how could she have any kind of nurturing male in her life if she hates seahorses? But then she said something that I could not believe. She said, but they're not real. They're like unicorns. She actually thought seahorses were mythological.
Whoa.
And I thought, how does she have any nurturing male around her ever? And she didn't. She just had a horrendous history with men. And so I told her that seahorses were real, and she was shocked. And she said, well, where do you find them? I said, if you're not in the ocean, go to the aquarium. There's a tank with seahorse. It turned out she lived right near an aquarium. She's been to the aquarium and she's never seen seahorses. And I thought, if you think they're mythological, that's probably why you haven't seen them. So what it did is it put it on her radar. And I just knew, like the next day she was going to go to the aquarium. I knew she was going to finally see a seahorse. And what was important about that wasn't that she saw the seahorse, but that then she would have the energy of nurturing males so she could draw human nurturing males into her life. I was amazed to be told that they don't exist.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That she'd gone through life like that.
Have you seen sea dragons, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're really,
they're cool looking.
They're really amazing. And you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of people wouldn't think they existed because they look like plants.
Yeah,
they do.
They do.
They're so beautiful. And we have 2 different types at our aquarium. They're gorgeous. Love them. Love the aquarium. Our youngest daughter got married at the aquarium. Those of you that know Jessie, she was married at that aquarium in front of the coral reef. And we had the reception there, rented out the whole aquarium for the night, and people could go and look at all of the fish and enjoy everything in the aquarium. But it was an interesting wedding. And then it was nighttime and there were outdoor balconies and stuff, and you could look over Tampa Bay and all of the lights, and it was pretty.
That's great. I just want people to know how intelligent and how compassionate these animals are. Because I don't think they think that snails could be intelligent or compassionate.
Yeah,
and there are stories about that.
I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that seashells are alive. Frankly,
That's a place to start. Every shell was made by an animal. You're right.
Yeah.
You should start
Well,
with it.
shells aren't alive. It's like their little house, but yeah, I know what you meant.
Right.
Joy York says, I bet it was beautiful. It was, Joy.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
like yeah, well, and she knows Jessie. She's hosted a show with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. But yeah, it is.
And you were talking yesterday in our meeting that, the seashells have blood.
Most are blue bloods.
Animals, yeah. Mostly, yes.
I never really thought about that. I thought about a seashell was a seashell. And I knew that animals had lived in them, Well,
I knew most of them. I knew they were blue bloods. What I didn't know is that there was one that has iron-rich blood, and of course it therefore is red, because the blue bloods come from being copper. It's not like they're Vulcan like Mr. Spock.
Or royalty.
Or royalty. But that it's copper-based. And that I really didn't know there was a red-blooded mollusk.
It needs to be because there's hardly any oxygen in their environment, so that they can utilize whatever little bit is there. But you mentioned royalty. Did you know the color purple comes also from mollusks?
I know that. It's from Phoenicia. And
Land of the purple.
That's why the Phoenician, that's why purple is the color of royalty, because it was so rare. It was the only place you could get it. I'm
Did you know also it was so rare, like only a few drops for each of the mollusks. So you had to take 1,000 mollusks for a pound of cloth. That's why only royalty could afford it. But then what they did, instead of waiting for the sun to transition to the color purple, they boiled them to speed up the process. And that released the worst odor ever. So now the person wearing the purple has to afford perfume. And that's what really made it expensive.
There you go.
Oh, what are the large ones that you can hear the ocean? My earliest memory from the seashells. That's the conch.
That's the conch.
That we were talking about.
Yes, there's my husband just put this in here. There's this conch.
That's a big conch.
Whoa.
The queen conch. You can hold it to your ear to listen to the ocean. You're actually not hearing the ocean. I don't mean to.
She knows. Joy knows she knows.
That bubble. What you're doing. What I read a long time ago, now this is controversial too, but it said what it was doing was amplifying the sound of the blood circulating in your ear.
Yeah.
Pumped by your heart. So to me, this is listen to your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. All the different messages.
Aren't there some shells that they play that
they can
blow?
Also.
The triton, you can cut the tip off and you can blow through it.
So they do that in the islands out in the South Pacific.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's also a conch, right? The type of conch.
That's called a triton, but yeah, they're similar.
They look the same.
They're related.
Yeah. Okay.
But not quite the same.
Oh, Joy says it spoke to her as a child.
Oh, it was a talking one.
I love that. Okay, so remember my childhood one that I was telling you about?
Right.
The picture that I did was of a little boy holding that shell to a little girl's ear.
Yeah.
Because I wanted people to remember when they were kids and they used to listen to the shell. Like their instinct was telling them they had something to say. And all I'm trying to do is take that instinct to the next step. You already know it.
And Joy just said it.
Yeah.
I
love that. That's what I was trying to capture with that picture.
Joy is a sensitive also.
Oh.
Yes. So
she.
I bet it did speak to her, actually. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I know.
Well,
we have a wonderful audience.
Yes,
what can I tell you?
Yes,
we do. You do.
Well, I know.
I see my role as just an ambassador on behalf of the shells. I try and get people to recognize all the wisdom that they hold. I think they're master teachers.
And that there's lessons to be learned,
Oh, yes.
I love that first one that you spoke of, that we all need to stretch and that we're going to have uncomfortable things that make us stretch.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be comfortable. It's never going to be comfortable when you have to grow.
Shelley, is that your favorite seashell, the one you hold up there?
I don't have a favorite.
You
For
don't
the
have a
longest time, it was the octopus.
Okay. All right.
But it fluctuates depending on what's going on in my life. Certain ones will get my attention.
Okay.
But don't you think? Yeah, but I would. Okay, but here, this is my thinking. Okay, and if you have readings at different times in your life, then you're going to be attracted to different things. If you're doing a tarot card reading, you don't always pick the same card.
Right.
So as you grow and as you enter different, times of your life, different things are going to speak to you. I mean, that's life. That's the way life is, right?
What happened to me is when I had people coming to the house for readings, I would get a new shell. So say I had 300 shells by then. I would get a new shell. A few days later, somebody would come for a reading. Now, to that person, they're all new. But that new shell ends up in their reading. And it showed me like they couldn't come until I had that one.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That happened a lot.
That's wild.
It happens a lot.
Every time, she said.
Wow. That's
so many crazy things happen with these guys. It's really been magical.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Well.
Yeah, I think we need to wind up here, but there's so much information. Again, we'll show where people can get a hold of you.
And she has lessons on her website. You can find all about that, oceanoracle.com. We've got a couple of comments here before we go. Paul Hollis said, very fascinating show. Thank you, Michelle, Joan, and Rob. Thank you for being in the audience, Paul.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Marjorie Deering said, very interesting. Thanks to each of you. Thank you, Marjorie. I really liked your question.
Yes, thank you.
It was an interesting answer, too. And Joy York said, all fascinating. It is.
Joy, we'll see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night, Joy. Don't forget. Joy's going to be on the panel for the
Haunted Campfire Tales.
Haunted Campfire Tales. I have
right.
It's one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My brain is like not wanting to say that.
Right.
and I helped choose the name, but
Oh, you did? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I was thinking you should change the name to the one that you come up with all
I couldn't change that name because that's the name of another group we belong to, Haunted Happy Hour. Joy said she looks forward to it. We're looking forward to it too, Joy. We're going to go over, we're going to do recaps from the live stream from Haunted Hill House. And also, I think you should all know we're going to be doing probably a live stream from May Springer in Brooksville, Florida, November 18th. And that should be really interesting because that's a very active haunted house.
7:30.
Paul Hollis says time is 7 or 7:30. It's 7:30.
Yeah.
And have your questions ready. We'll answer them. You finally got to see us really in action.
Slow as it
saw me running into the room yelling, the REM pod is going on. So no, we don't run away or get scared. We run towards those things, as we've told you. I was really excited, and then it turned out to be nothing but a change in temperature. It was nothing, no big deal.
Yeah.
It was not at all any kind of entity or paranormal anything.
Shelley, it's been wonderful meeting you. And
it has.
Thank you for all your sharing. Your books sound fantastic. And we're going to move you over to the side right now. But stay with us until we come back to you. Okay?
She's a wealth of information, is she not?
There you go. Like we said, Haunted Campfire Tales tomorrow night, 7:30, right here Tampa Bay Spirits Facebook page would be the best place to go. The page, not the group.
Then you have to give your permission to stream your
Not on the page, though. Yeah. But not the group page.
Yeah. Okay.
The page.
The page.
There's a group page and a page.
All right.
Facebook is crazy. Anyway, TampaBaySpirits1.com to find out more information. This Saturday, Magnolia Bluff 2023 Reveal Part 1 on episode Rewind, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here. And next Wednesday, we're going to be live. We're not going to be in Australia, but Philip Strang will be waking up in the morning on Thursday. He'll be time traveling with us to be on the show live, 7 o'clock next Wednesday night for our show here. Same place where you're watching right now. And we also have a new blog on LinkedIn, and that's for Meet the Author Podcast. So if you belong to LinkedIn, subscribe to our blog and you'll get all sorts of new information. We're just getting it cranked up, so we don't have a rhythm going yet, but we'd love to have you.
Like, share, and comment on our YouTube, please.
Yeah.
We need more people on our YouTube. We have lots of people here on the podcast, but we have very few followers on YouTube. Lots of followers on everything else, but YouTube is low.
Right. So right now we're going to give you a little tutorial on how to get over to Voice of Indie podcast if you'd like to go hear that right now live. And I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.